Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're having a conversation with a fellow podcaster who's also built 50 or so for other people. He has a great story. Everybody, welcome Dr. Jeremy to the show. Jeremy, welcome.
Josh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, telling everybody, but why don't you give us an overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Dr. Jeremy Weisz. I have a weird background, Josh, as you probably know, but I run Rise 25, and we help businesses reach their Dream 100 clients and referral partners. And we do that by helping them run and start a podcast, right? So my background's in biochemistry as a chiropractor, actually. So it's a weird, windy journey, but I landed on Rise 25. And what I love about, and you know this too, love about podcasting is you get to talk to and learn from some of the best people on the planet, and you get to talk to some of your heroes, some of the people who you want to be talking to.
Yeah. So it's great coaching, right? So if you have a podcast show, you have a microphone, you're going to get incredible knowledge just from absorption and asking the questions that, I've had famous people on my show and I get to ask some questions that I'm like, oh man, super helpful. But on the flip side, I also have an impact show and I get free counseling all the time, free counseling and coaching, because I'm asking all the questions that are going on in my head. Now, when you started your first one, kind of walk us through, because you were biochemistry, chiropractor, what inspired you to start your first show?
That's a great question. And I want to piggyback on what you just said. It's a Swiss Army knife because, like you said, it's personal development, it's referral pipeline, it's SEO, it's content marketing, it's all those things in one. So, and I would do it if no one listened to it because of just the personal development aspect. Like you said, if you have like a burning question, you're like, I don't know, I need to set up some kind of technical aspect of SEO. Well, you could have a top SEO expert on your podcast, learn from them, ask your pressing questions. And so why it gets started, I mean, when you're a chiropractor in any service industry, actually, you are a small business owner and you have to do everything. When you go to chiropractic school, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're whatever you are, you learn the trade, but you do not learn marketing, you don't learn sales, you don't learn running of a business at all. And so I am a learner. So I was going to all these conferences and I knew I needed to learn. This was 2005, 2006, going to all these conferences, marketing conferences, and learning from, no one in the room was a chiropractor. They were all kind of digital marketers. And so just learning from them, and some of the people I was chatting with at the time, the early on people had a podcast. I was like, I love talking to people. I'm naturally curious. I love learning. And this, I just kind of latched onto that as like a perfect thing that I should be doing. Yeah. And I very quickly realized, wow, like I can really get some amazing people on my shows.
Got it. So you were actual, cracking backs and adjusting, and you were helping people get their life, their body straightened up.
Yeah.
And you looked at podcasts. Now, how does that connect in with a chiropractor? Because you had you needed, was there a business relation to it, or was it, educational for your clients? Like, why did you do it as a chiropractor?
Well, so that's both, actually. So, actually, the funny thing is, it's a great for content. So anyone who has a business, they can have thought leadership episodes where they are talking directly to their clients or potential clients and answer all their questions for, frequently asked questions. I call those thought leadership episodes. So if you're a chiropractor, if you're a lawyer, you can say, what are the 3 things you should not be doing when you're shoveling, right? And it's content you could send out, email out to your clients. Or you can have referral partnerships. So if you look in the area, if there's local MDs that they don't treat back pain, as far as maybe they'll send them to a physical therapist or pain pills. They're like, listen, here's another option, like that's natural. And so you can connect with acupuncturists in the area, you connect with medical doctors in the area. So this applies to any business at all. And if it's a B2C business, like we work mostly with B2B podcasts, but if there's a B2B component, most of the time there is. So if you think, a chiropractor is more to, a business to consumer, you want a patient to come in, but when you think of the referral options, they're endless, right? There could be acupuncturists, there could be massage therapists in the area, there could be medical doctors in the area. So I can go on and on, but so you can have it focus in on that. But I was, curious about just business in general. So I was less using it for like health practitioners than listen, I need to learn this email marketing thing. So I've had on the founder of AWeber, I've had the founder of ActiveCamp. I mean, not just someone who does email marketing, but someone who owns one of the, premier email marketing softwares. So I was using it more for that aspect and learning all of the business aspects that I wanted to learn about at the time.
Yeah. And when you have a microphone, people are more apt to have a conversation with you. I don't know what it is about the microphone, but on my LinkedIn, you'll see a picture of a microphone. You'll see, me, doing interviews or talking on stage or something like that. But there's like this, when I do outreach, now I've been in sales my whole life. I could pick up a phone book and start making phone calls. My open rate or answer rate will be super low. When I run a campaign through my podcast, my response rate is in like the 60s to 70s, like of people who will at least respond to me, right? It's ridiculous. Why do you think people on the flip side, right? Why do you think people on the flip side would be open to having a conversation with me, still a sales guy, but now that I have a microphone, they're willing to talk? Why do you think that is?
I mean, the way I think of relationships in general is I always want to give first, right? So in any relationship, if I don't want to ask for something, I want to come at it with, how do I give and serve that person, right? And so with a podcast, I have found, I have my friends on, I have the people and the companies I admire on my podcast. And when you're reaching out, like you said, in as far as coming on my show, it's a give, and it's a give to profile them, and it's a give to profile what they're working on. And also they know it's going a lot further. So that one conversation, if you're like, hey, let me demo my software. If you go, well, let me talk about your company and what you're doing, it's a totally different positioning. It's a totally different, reason to talk. And also it's going a lot further. So that one 30-minute call, let's say you did just chat and they wanted to chat with you, but you're recording as a podcast. Now they know it's going on. We create a separate blog post. It goes on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. It gets syndicated then on social media. So they know it's going across like 15 different channels. So like if it were me and someone's coming at me, you probably get lots of, messages every single day, as do I. And if they're giving me a give, like why is it benefiting me? I'm more likely to respond than, hey, even just a nice email that's, hey, I saw you're in my network and I thought you looked interesting. Well, great. That's nice, but it's kind of just a cop out. They didn't maybe look at my profile or look at my information, but it's a give.
Yeah. See, I love that because when you have, when you crest on LinkedIn specifically, you get over 500 connections, then you get into 1,000, then 5,000, then 10, 20, right? When the more connections you get, the more you're going to start getting like spammed or people outreaching. It creates its own gravitational pull. And here are the ones that I answer or respond to at all. Here's the ones I don't. Hey man, I see we're in our network and I want to learn more about you. Here's my calendar link. Do you want to chat? I know nothing about them. They know nothing about me. Why would I chat with them? On the flip side, if someone reaches out, and you and I connected this way too, is, hey, I see you're on a podcast, interested in doing a podcast together, share audiences. Let me lift you up, right? You and I immediately were like, hell yeah, let's chat. Big difference, right?
Someone did a video, Josh, I forgot who it was, but they went up to people on the street and read like their LinkedIn messages. Just not saying it's a LinkedIn message, but like, let's say that person just walked up and say, hey, Josh, you look really interesting in my network. Do you want to schedule on my calendar? Like he just read his messages, and it's funny, right? We're laughing about it, but it's a person-to-person communication. If I said like a normal interaction, like, Josh, you look, and I actually looked at your stuff, go, hey, I saw you have this podcast. It looks really cool. Would you think about coming on mine? That would be a normal response. But some of these, if the look on the people's faces when he read some of these cold outreach messages from his LinkedIn that were just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was funny.
That is such a good thing. That's a great video because, people, I don't know what it is. They sit in front of their email or LinkedIn and they immediately stop thinking that they're talking to a human on the recipient line of
Right.
whatever that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with podcasting, I mean, and you do
So
this
there's
for
a
B2B,
lesson
right?
right there. Like if you're reaching out to someone, read it as if you were like walking up to them at a dinner party or something. And if that doesn't make sense, maybe change the messaging.
Right. Exactly. So how long have you been doing podcasting?
Over a decade.
Okay. You've done a tremendous amount of interviews with people and conversations with people.
Thousands. Yeah.
Thousands. Do you feel that with what you're doing in podcasting, like you've been going at it for a long time, do you think it's helped improve your business conversations in general, like when you're talking to a potential client?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, when you are speaking, right? You are practicing speaking, you're practicing having conversation, you're practicing asking questions, and you're also learning. So, when I have these pressing questions, I can ask them and I'm constantly learning. So I am not an expert in a lot of different things, but I went, for example, on like a 6-month binge of interviewing some of the top direct response marketers, copywriters on the planet. And when you do that, I've probably spent thousands of hours, and I do research ahead of time. I'm not just going in blind. So I do research ahead of time, and I've spent thousands of hours at this point learning about copywriting and direct response marketing. And so, by doing that, you can talk to some of the experts out. By the time you do this number of interviews, you could talk with some of the experts and hold your own,
Yeah, and it's so true. Because I was having a conversation with a private equity guy the other day, and I'm rattling off stuff because I've interviewed 1,000 private equity or venture capitalists. And he's like, how did you learn all this stuff? Like from a place in Ocala, right? Ocala is Central Florida. We're known for horses and maybe a little bit of real estate. No venture capital here. No, like very little like tech businesses. But because I have a podcast and I've interviewed people over the past 7 years. Now, so this parlays us into what you're doing. Why? So you as a doctor, biochemistry and aligning people, how in the world did you switch over and create, maybe not even switch over, what inspired you to help other people do it? Because now you're syndicating shows, teaching, coaching, doing it for them.
I mean, it's really from early on. I had helped a number of podcasts early on. So I started podcasting, and then I actually was helping behind the scenes a number of podcasts. One of them was one of the early on business interview podcasts, Mixergy, and Andrew Warner and I are good friends. And I worked with them for 7 years behind the scenes. And he'd mentioned maybe my name on some episodes, just not even my full name. It's like, hey, Jeremy's helping with the producer stuff or whatever. And people would find me somehow. And this is back a long time ago, but they would reach out because at that time there weren't many people doing podcasting. So, hey, can you help me do this? Can you help set this up? Can you help me launch this? And at first I was like, yeah, I'm happy to like coach you through it because it's a lot of work. And so over the years, I formed a team around me. And so the first few that reached out, I was like, I'm happy to coach you through it, answer any of your questions. It's a lot of work. Good luck. Then, we created a course. So like to help people, hey, like created this course, just check it out. And then, we created a whole team around us so we could do all of the elements. So the next person asks like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, sure, we'll do it all for you. Push button, easy button. That's what people want in the end. I just want to get this up and running. And can you just do it all for me so I could show up and talk? And we're like, yes, we can do that. But for a long time, I was doing more of that, just consulting with people, making sure they had all the elements, because it is a lot of, as there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has to happen. So
yeah. All right. So I love this. You were as a chiropractor, you created your own. Then other people were coming to you and going, hey, will you help us with ours? At one point, did it get like overwhelming where you just kind of decided to go, hey, I need to outsource this part of the business or hire this or build this team? Like what did that look like for you?
If anyone has, so running a full-time chiropractic practice, I could show up. So I would segment my day. I would treat patients from, say 9 to 11, then from 11 to 2, I would do any other interview related, podcast related, or even from 11 to 3. And then from, 3 to 6 or whatever it is, I would treat patients. So I would segment my day. So I had times throughout the day that I could do this, but I couldn't do, I mean, in the beginning, I actually did. I was, had to do the audio stuff. And then I made sure that there was everyone I think that has a podcast should have an individual post for each one of the episodes. So that you're not just sending them to iTunes or one of these platforms, but you are owning that visitor and having a dedicated blog post for each one of the episodes. So I was creating that. And then very shortly, I wanted to pull my hair out of what I had left. And I, started building a team around me of people that can do this. And as I slowly built more and more of a team, we were able to take on clients to do the same, because it is a big pain point. Like in my mind, people should do two things. They should be building the relationship and running the business. Everything else should be delegated off of the person's plate.
Okay, let's go into detail about that. As a founder, as a CEO of a company, where should they be focusing their energy and time?
I talk about just there's 5 steps to profit with a podcast. So it's not just about starting a podcast. Yes, I tell people, when people come to me, and you probably talk to a lot of people, go, Jeremy, I have this idea. It's a passion project. And I say, that's awesome. If it's a passion, if I hear the word passion project, I often think they're going to quit. Not that it's bad to have a passion project, but I also don't want people to quit. So if it's not linked to some kind of business initiative, because in the end, it is a lot of energy and work. And whether someone gets burnt out in 3 months, 6 months, a year, they're going to look back and go, God, this is a lot of time. Is this time and energy worth it? And so I really want people to generate revenue from it. So even if they just even if it's a break even endeavor, like just keep going with it. Okay. But I feel like it has to serve a business purpose. So the passion project, when I say, cool, how can you link this to a business initiative so that you actually make money? So you keep doing it. Because if it's a true passion, you probably want to keep doing it forever. So I tell people there's 5 steps to profit with a podcast, not just start a podcast, which is create your dream 100. And creating your dream 100 is not just clients, it's referral partners, it's people in the industry. And number 2 is outreach to those people. And the foundation is that dream 100, right? Because if you focus on the wrong dream 100, you're not going to get like if you go, Jeremy, I have the Dealmakers. I'm trying to connect these people with VCs. And you're like, I'm going to interview comedians on my podcast. I'd be like, and you laugh, like people do that, right? Because they maybe geek out on comedy like I do. And then they end up going down this rabbit hole and it doesn't serve their business. Now, you may have, what I would argue is, cool, you want to do comedy, get comedians who are in the VC world, right? Or comedians who are doing deals. Great. So you've combined your passion with, you almost created this own niche. Like I only serve doing deals with comedians who want to do deals or whatever. But so outreach, then, creating amazing content. And there's ways to the art and science of producing amazing content, and then building your give loop and grow your reach through the platforms. And then it's turn your podcast into profits. And really the bottom line is forming real relationships. Like, do you want there's no secret. You give to your network, and form real relationships and turn your guests and your relationships into partners of yours, because you're going to refer to them. They're going to refer to you. So,
So I think one of the things that in that process, the thing that I love the most is that give loop, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that, in that give loop, there's, what are your offers? What are the referral offers? What's the value ladder, right? I'm making assumptions, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you could kind of give a few ideas of what this give loop and reach expansion looks like, because I think in this, out of all the stuff that you're doing, I think that podcasters, artists, right? I think that is an area that I think a lot of people miss is what does that give loop look like?
Yeah. I mean, so I'll tell you, and you've experienced in our conversation, when I talk to someone, what's on my mind is what are they working on and how can I help them? And who in my network, and by the way, you don't even have to know the person. Okay. And I'll give you an example. Know people. Let's say, Jeremy, I have no connections. How am I supposed to help this person? Okay. So I was like, okay, what's Josh working on? Oh, okay. I think Steve Hoffman would be an amazing introduction for Josh on baseline. He's working on. Steve has a lot of connections. He's an amazing guy. He knows a lot of VCs. I need to introduce him to Steve. So it's nothing about me. It's like the give loop is thinking of what's this person's biggest need, pain point, what they're working on, and then how can I help them? And so I'm like, okay, I can help them with people in my network. I can help them. Everyone has a social media account. So like LinkedIn or Facebook, I can go, and anyone could do this. If you want to get on Josh's radar, what you can do is if he's looking to connect to VCs or other, real estate deals or whatever type of deals, you can go to Josh's website. You can grab his bio. You can go, hey, my friend Josh, here's what he's doing. If someone knows any VCs and you tag a few people in your network, everyone has some kind of network. And even if they're not a VC, they can go on their LinkedIn and go, hey, and I did this, by the way, for 2 people in the past 5 days. They didn't know I was doing it. I just said, hey, I love what you're working on. And we was just a conversation, and I posted it on LinkedIn, and I just said, hey, here's my friend. Here's what he's doing. Do you know anyone that would be a fit? And I tagged a few people in my network that may know people. And then I told the person afterwards, I'll say, hey, Corey, I just wrote this LinkedIn post about you, about what you're working on. Feel free to share it on your network and tag some people, because I know this is what you're working on. And there was a slew of comments. I didn't, his niche is law firms and lawyers, which I don't know a ton. I mean, I don't know some, but it doesn't matter. Right. And so that would be an example of just a way to give to your network. You can introduce them to people. You can post on your Facebook or LinkedIn and just try and help that person.
Yeah.
Super simple. I mean, it's not complicated. I mean, honestly,
it's not complicated. And there's something in us that in the book Influence, it talks about the law of reciprocity, right?
Yeah. I love that book, Robert Cialdini. Yeah.
It's so good, right? When you give someone first, now if you're doing it with a pure heart and such like that, right? Like there's something in them that goes, hey, I want to return the favor, right? There's some type of, social economy where we're going, hey, Dr. Jeremy just did something nice for me. I want to do something nice for him. And what it does is it creates a relationship, a value-based relationship, even if it's a professional relationship. Like before jumping on this call, like I sent out a business introduction. I don't know if I'm going to get paid on it. It could be a big deal, but I'm building my muscle on giving relationships, business relationships, to put deals together. Now, you chose in the podcast world, you chose to focus on B2B businesses, which are business to business relationships for your podcasting. Why did you choose that? Because I'll expand on my question after you go through the details of that.
Yeah. I mean, B2B businesses, the best fit for us, which is B2B businesses with a high client lifetime value, and they're nice people. I mean, we like working with nice people. We spend a lot of time working, and you smile at that. Nice. It's just fun. Like people who, when you're working with nice clients, life is fun. And so B2B, because we know that they have very high leverage results. So if it's a great question, because we just want to work with the people we can get the best results for. Okay. Yeah. And we turn people away all the time because we feel like it's not a slam dunk, right? We want the people that it's a slam dunk. So let's say you have a client lifetime value of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. We have clients who their lifetime value is $1 million. That means they get one client. The lifetime value is $1 million for their business. Well, if in a given year, if they do 40 interviews with referral partners, not even clients, but referral partners, and one of those people refers one person that year. Okay. If our services, let's just say on average could be anywhere from 1,000 a month to 10,000 a month, depending on what we're doing. But let's just say it's on the lower end. Our one client for that person could pay for us for 10 years. Okay. They get one referral partner out of the 40 people that they interviewed. One person is a referral partner, refers them one client that's worth $50,000 to them. That pays for us for years. Okay. So it's just become, so it's basically the reason I'm answering it that way is because we want our clients to get results, and we want our line item to be a no-brainer for them. And so that's what, we could go after a lot of different markets, but in the end, it's a no-brainer in that situation,
So this is where I made a mistake in the past, right? So I'm going to stack a few questions in one. One, you said passion project, cool, but if you don't have a business outcome of it, you're probably not going to continue. I had a show that I started, did almost 300 episodes on it, maybe 250. No back end business model, created a ton of value for other people. I went broke on it. Like I ran out of money where I had to shut it down. Hit iTunes top of charts, tons of publicity, tons of results in terms of audience.
Everyone looking from the outside, like amazing success of the podcast, right?
Except there was no business value to me, right? So what I had to adjust, and this was 3 or 4 podcasts ago, I had to adjust who is my ideal audience, and then what does the deal look like, right? And I think we've learned that over time, because I had to go through the ringer of failure to get there. But you guys are nailing it for now. In your scenario, you interview 40 people, not even your end client, referral partners, and you get one deal out of it. So we didn't even discuss, like a huge audience. We didn't even discuss having, all this publicity or whatever. One conversation with a referral partner, they referred your business or a person, $1 million lifetime value.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be that extreme. It could be 50,000. It could be 10,000. But by the way, even if you get 10% of people referring, let's say you interview 40 people, 4 of them become referral partners. Yeah. And they refer you one person that year. Well, they're still friends the second year. So the second year you do the podcast, you interview another 40, and and another 40, and another 40. You know what I mean? So it's those people are still relationships year 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. I hope the light bulb just went off in everybody's head, because right now everybody is chasing and paying for this huge audience. Now, this is some secret sauce, because everybody's focusing on the audience. Everybody's focused on how many followers. You were just a simple example. You interviewed 40 people. One of them referred you because of their network, referred you a business, and it closed a deal. We didn't mention you had, top of iTunes chart or whatever. That's where I made my biggest mistake in podcasting, was that I chased an audience rather than chasing relationships with my guest.
And I did I did an episode on my podcast, Inspired Insider, where I talked about the type of episodes I think everyone should be created. So one of them, one type of episode, and people kind of go off the rocker on certain types. And so we will see, and you could check out Inspired Insider to see if I have the proper ratio, but I recommend referral partners and strategic partners, number 1 type. Number 2 is thought leadership episodes. So your internal thought leadership. If you want to know about doing deals, it should be Josh's thought leadership on those, right? It should be current clients or past clients, having them on and talk about their business, but they'll mention, it's so easy to do deals with Josh. It's amazing, and you can have potential clients on there. And sometimes I'll have someone ask me, Jeremy, I really want to start a podcast. Let's chat about how that works with you. And if it's a fit in the type of guests I'm having, like if I'm having top B2B SaaS founders on, I'll go, hey, I'm featuring top B2B SaaS. Before we even talk about doing your podcast, why don't you just come on? You're a perfect fit for what I'm working on right now. And let's just do that. And I just kind of even halt the quote unquote like sales conversation to say, just come on and experience a podcast. You'll see how it works with me. We'll tell your story and then go from there. So you can have potential clients, not even a cold outreach, but an incoming person. Do you know what I mean? And showing them value that way.
Yeah.
And then you could have industry leaders. Like, there's probably people in the, if you take VCs or SaaS or whatever, there's probably well-known speakers, authors, people who have conferences, like those type of people that will be great to have on. They're usually too busy to refer business but sometimes they do, but it's more, you have this social proof behind it. And I can't remember if Cialdini or someone else talked about that, but social proof is big. So if I could say, at this point, I've had the founders of Pixar, Atari, P90X, Einstein Bagel, like I have tons of social proof, but you could always have a little bit more. And some of these people you'd never know in certain industries. They're famous in an industry and no one else knows them. So if you're looking to get into a niche industry, having that person on, it's surprising, outside of our, certain niches, you would never know who the people are. Like if you go to the restaurant, you go, hey, do you know what Shopify is? If you had the founder of Shopify on. Now, if you're talking to e-commerce, people are like, holy cow, you had the founder of Shopify on. I mean, I didn't have the founder of Shopify, but that would be total social proof to that market.
So anybody out there who knows the founder of Shopify, this would be a great opportunity to add some value to Dr. Jeremy over here. So, all right, what is your favorite part? Because right now you have your chiropractic business, you have your podcast syndication and production, like that you're building it, coaching, doing it for them business. Like, what is your favorite part of a day that you're like, you just get jazzed about? Like you look at your calendar and you're like, all right, here's 10 things I got to do, but here's the one thing that I really want to do. What's that?
Yeah. I mean, I love, with, Inspired Insider and Rise 25, what I love doing is talking to like-minded founders and entrepreneurs and hearing their journey. I really love it. It's for so many reasons, and helping other people tell their story, because I do feel like it helps leave a legacy for them. So in the end, we're talking about all the business things, but there's a lot of personal things as well. So if you look at leaving a legacy for people, unfortunately, I've had people on Inspired Insider, how young or old, pass away.
Yeah.
And there's one I had, Jordan was a really successful founder. He was battling cancer at the time when he came on my podcast, and I think it was like stage 4 cancer. And he's such, like, just an amazing guy, and he passed away after the interview. And I got an email from his family saying, we watched, like, within a week of when he passed away, they watched the interview that we did. And I do video as well. So there's not always video for other ones. It's like, you captured the essence of George, like, thank you. And so there is a legacy piece that goes along with this, that the legacy of that story lives on,
Yeah, that's so good, because I think, for our impact show, we have an impact show. And some of the guys and gals get to come on the show and they get to share just their story. And afterwards, like, I mean, I had a guy just recently cry on the show. And then, cause I asked the question, you'll have to go back and listen to it, for people out there, but he cried on the show. And then afterwards he goes, thank you. I never get an opportunity to share this. Right. Cause they're busy, right? They've got, 100 employees and they're just hustling and hustling and hustling. And then they come home and their family knows them and they're not asking these questions or something. So getting an opportunity to go, share their story for the guests, man, that he was like, thank you so much. It was we have a relationship now, right? I got the cell phone numbers of CEOs and founders and investors. And so, but like you said, it builds a relationship from this. Now, from all the interviews, if you had to guess, how many podcast interviews and episodes have you published over the past decade? Take a guess.
Oh my God. Because for the thought leadership episodes, when we're working with the client, we'll interview them for the thought leadership. So thousands on thousands, not just on my show, but we're on other shows, where you'll hear me interviewing people on their show.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I have them a guest, but like definitely in thousands of interviews.
Okay. So in
You know,
those, are there any big screw ups like you're in the that you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I completely bombed that. So any screw ups, and then what is your absolute like one that just like sticks near and dear to your heart?
I mean, I screw up every day. I mean, I think I've screwed up intros. I've screwed up my own intro when and I'll introduce myself. So I don't do like a pre-recorded like necessarily. I mean, there's an intro, someone introducing me on the episode, but I will say is Dr. Jeremy Weisz, host of InspiredInsider.com, blah, blah, blah. And I messed up my own name. I've messed up my show's name. And I just keep going through it. I don't edit it out.
Yeah.
I just keep going through it. So I would encourage people just go with it. People think a million people are listening. No one's really listening. And no one, even if they're listening, they don't care that you messed up your own name. If they do care, maybe they shouldn't be in your universe. Like, who cares? Right.
Yeah.
So I mess up all the time. And we're always harder on ourselves, but I'll mess up. I try to always ask the person's name, how you pronounce it, so I don't mess up their name. But there's just stuff that I will not pick up on a cue. And then I just not asking questions like that. Looking back, I'm like, oh, they almost queued me up to like ask me something interesting. And I just kind of glossed over it and went on to the next thing. So I would just, for me, just really actively listening solves a lot of issues of any mistakes. Right.
Yeah.
And just so many mistakes, and you were always trying to improve our content.
Yeah.
So
Now,
from a looking back on shows, I'll name one that no one knows not a lot of people know who this person is, and one that you have, because it's not the ones that are really famous that are like the coolest ones. It's the ones that like you discover this person's story and it's fascinating. So recently, I've had the co-founder of Pixar on my podcast. So that was obviously, he was telling Jobs or, telling stories about Steve Jobs and George Lucas and just the starting of Pixar. It was fascinating. And I mean, I think I was just like, tell me how this all started. And he went on for 20 minutes of some of the most fascinating stories I've heard. From the other side, I had this guy that I always go back to, Chris Ategeka, which I highly doubt most people have heard of him, but his story was amazing. It was literally, Josh, if you watched this story as a movie, we would think half of it or 80% of it was fake because of how amazing it was, and all of it's true, right? So both his parents died of, he grew up in Africa, both his parents died of HIV when he was really young. He ended up having to take care of his siblings. One of his siblings died on the way to the hospital, so he created a nonprofit rehabbing bikes as the bike ambulances. He won a lottery to go to the U.S., to go to high school in the U.S. And one part that struck me, he was on the airplane and he, first of all, I don't think he wore shoes until he was 18. But I guess the stewardess gave him a bottle of water and he was like God descended down because he's used to walking miles, pumping the well, getting water, walking miles back. And so just someone handing him a bottle of water was unheard of. Right. And so it's just like the things we take for granted. And the story goes on and it gets even more amazing from there. He went to get his PhD at Berkeley, started two nonprofits, and just an amazing story.
Wow. Have you ever cried on one of your shows or had someone else like tear up on like?
I mean, I've definitely had people get emotional. I can't remember if someone cried. People have gotten emotional when they're talking about some low points in their business or life. It can be emotional, and the journey. I can't remember a specific time right now. I mean, the reason I started one of the, we talk about the legacy piece. One of the reasons I started was also there's a business side and there's a personal side. From the personal side, for me, if you go to the about page of Inspired Insider, and I didn't realize this for a long time, my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, and the Holocaust Foundation did an interview with him about his story and his journey. And so there's like a short clip, and if you scroll down the bottom, there's like an hour long. It's graphic, so I'll warn you there. But the reason his legacy lives on was because someone did a video interview with him, and so my kids can watch it, my grandkids, God willing, can watch it, and it's amazing. But at the end, he talks about what propelled him to that he beat the Nazis, and so I just encourage you to listen to that. So I get emotional when I think about it, because that is the reason that drives me, for his, I don't know how, when you listen to his story, how he survived in those conditions, but he did. And so I need to make the best of it,
Yeah. So, oh man, I'm having fun here. All right. We're going to do a little role play. If you, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Go ahead. Put me on the spot. That's really cool.
When you get two podcasters who kind of like know the game, it's fun to sharpen iron a little bit, and clang swords together. If you were sitting in front of your grandpa and you had an opportunity to interview him, what would be that one question that you asked him on, for a piece of advice? What would you ask your grandpa?
I think, at the end of the interview, the guy asked a question, and maybe it could have gone deeper, but he said, what was the lesson you learned from all this? And he said, to love people. And I would think the opposite, right? I mean, like when you think of someone killing your whole family, and someone, torturing you, etc., like that's what you come out of this with. And I would just probably have gone a little bit deeper with that and said, how do you come out of that? How do you come out with the lesson is loving people, as opposed to like, how did you actually not hate as much as maybe I would have thought you should have,
Yeah. What do you think he would say?
I mean, he came out with, helping people, and people are always staying at his house, and, other immigrants and things like that. So I think he would probably say, what is what are you going to perpetuate? Like, are you going to more hate perpetuates hate, right? And love perpetuates love. So what do you want to actually perpetuate? I imagine that's what
that's
what happened.
That's a really good lesson from a guy who had everything kind of taken away from him: financial, family, security, identity, right? His identity was tattooed on his arm. Man, powerful story there. So as you're building this out for other people, man, I sidetracked this, man. Like we went way off, but I'm glad we did.
That's that's a beauty of, what podcasting should be, is authentic conversations, and that's how it should be.
Sometimes I forget that I'm actually doing a podcast interview, because I start hearing people's story, and I go, okay, business put on the shelf, because I think business is personal, and when you learn about the person, you figure out, like, do I know, like, and trust this person? Could I do a deal with the person? Should I do a deal with the person? So like, I think business is personal, and I think I love this opportunity to kind of like dig in past all the stuff and get to know the person. So kind of like steering back to track is with, building relationships through podcasting. If you had, a group of people, B2B, obviously we know B2B, high life value customer, right? So, you're not trying to get a dollar widget. You're trying to get a decent sized deal. Like if that supports your business. Are there any other check marks that you're like, hey, you need this for, if you're going to do a podcast, this, it should have this or not have this, like red flag, don't do this. Like what are some of the things you look for?
It's funny because I was talking to someone the other day about this, and they're like, why should I not start a podcast? And I was like, because I mean, listen, for me, doing this over decades, the last thing I'd ever stop doing. I've gone to people's weddings. I've gone on family vacations with people. I've made best friends. So I would never stop doing it. forget about the business reasons. I mean, we do business with our friends, obviously, but there's so many personal reasons. So I said to him, I'm like, I am biased, totally biased in this question, because and not only has it been one of the most amazing things I've done for my personal life and business. So I said to him, listen, if you don't like talking to people, then you shouldn't do it. I mean, because you should want to, I mean, some people are just really introverted, do not like talking to people, but I would then say, hey, some from your team should do it if you're not the person, right? And so that would be a reason why I'd be like, listen, I don't like talking to people. Find someone who does, but that person maybe should just not do it at all.
Yeah.
If it's not going to create some type of, and some people will disagree with me on this, right? If it's not going to create some kind of revenue, okay, and I'm not talking like ad revenue, right? And we're talking B2B here, okay? So like if someone wants to start a true crime podcast and try and monetize it, however, but like that path is very difficult, okay? So I want someone to make it sustainable and make money with it. But so if you're thinking, well, I just want to do this for fun, like do it, I guess, but like I just don't want you to do it and quit, right? Because I know it's I know how valuable it actually is. So try and get to revenue as quickly as possible so that you keep doing it no matter what. But I mean, I'm trying to think of, I don't know if you have a suggestion, like what would be a reason someone, because I know you've done many podcasts and many podcast episodes, you're a big proponent. What else am I missing that why someone shouldn't do it?
So I would say if it doesn't align with what you do on a day-to-day basis, like if it's pulling you away from your focus, I would say don't do it.
Yeah. That's like a revenue thing. So basically, if it's not serving your main focus.
Right. Well, so for us, we have 3 shows that we currently have, but in our if we drew a Venn diagram up on the board, it all points to the same area. Even though it's an impact show, it's connecting in with a part of our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have 3 shows running, right, which is a lot. If I had an inkling one day to do a podcast show focused on, whatever, bandanas. I like bandanas. What would happen is now I have to choose between something like a bandana conversation all day long versus a deal. I'm going to choose deals all day long because it supports my mission, my vision. It supports my family, right? Even though I like bandanas, like you were saying, it just doesn't tie in. So if something is just for fun, then make it just for fun. Do it once a month, test it out, right? Have another show, but do a show that specifically aligns with your mission, vision, purpose, core values, right? Like, it'll keep you driving. That's
I guess I'm just trying to think of the people I've talked to that I've basically told them I don't think you should start a podcast. and I've told people that before.
Yeah.
For sure. And one person said, well, I go, why do you want to start it? And they go, well, I want to be famous and I want to get a lot of downloads. I'm like, good luck.
Yeah.
I go, it's not. And they had an amazing business, by the way, but they go, I don't want it to have anything to do with the business. Like kind of like what you said. And I'm like, honestly, I can't help you. And then there was like the super introverted person. I was like, honestly, if you're not excited about it, you shouldn't do it because you're just going to quit. And so like, if you maybe have someone on the team excited, but if you're the only one who's going to do this, I told the person, I recommend you just not doing it because I could just tell you, I mean, you should be excited. If we're talking, some part of it should excite you. And if it doesn't, you shouldn't.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to time, like I'm a busy guy. I've got a couple hundred emails, right? That I worked through over the weekend. Now it's back at a couple hundred, right? So for busy people, time should not be an excuse for this, especially if it could be a core driver for your business.
Yeah.
I am constantly working on systems, processes, delegations, joint ventures, like getting the bull crap off the plate where I focus on showing up and recording. And then I have teams that do on the bed. So I do not think time is an element, and also resources, right? Like
let me speak to the time thing for a second, because you're right. You should be focusing your highest level, and people are like, well, I'm super busy. What I tell people is you should already be having these conversations. Like, are you already having these conversations? You're not having to carve out more time. Like,
Mm.
because people think of like some outside guest has nothing to do with their business, but like, are you already talking to your referral partners, your actual clients and potential clients? Great. So it shouldn't take you any more time. If you, again, the caveat is, like you said, if you have a team behind you to do it, right?
Yeah.
But you should already be having these conversations. If you're not, there's another larger problem that we're talking about.
Yeah. And how many times after a conversation, let's say you didn't have the podcast record, how many times like you're on a phone call with someone, it's a buddy or a business owner, and you're like, dang it, man, I wish I would have recorded that. Like you dropped so much gold there. Like sometimes when I talk with
Yes.
some of my investors, I go, I wish I would have recorded that because the gold that they're sharing, and I'm like, now I have to remember and then go back and record it. So yeah, you're already having these conversations. Might as well record them, then, unless you're doing something naughty, then maybe you don't want to record it. But let me add, final question. I actually, that's a lie. I'm going to ask you a few more. Let's get the big one out of the way. There's someone out there, B2B, they do a service, a product, an offer. It's high value and it's in the B2B space. And they're going, hey, we should build a podcast, or we have one going, but we need some help, systems, processes, growth. Dr. Jeremy, where's a good place for people to connect with you, do a deal with you, and help grow their deal flow through podcast?
Yeah. Even if you are out there and you have a question, we're open to answering any questions that you have. So all you have to do is go to rise25.com and go to the contact page. Make sure you say, you mentioned Josh Wilson's the best thing since sliced bread in the subject line, so we know you heard it on the podcast. And just whatever questions you have, we're totally open to answering them, even if like not a fit to work together, you're not looking for someone to work with. Just ask us your most pressing questions. We're here to help. So just go to rise25.com and go to the contact page.
Okay, that's a great thing, and mention Josh Wilson or the Deal Scout, and you guys will get bumped to the front of the email box and have a conversation with Dr. Jeremy and his team. All right, so what question? Because you've done 1,000 interviews and thousands and thousands, and you're on a lot of these. What question do you wish someone would ask you? That you're like, you wake up and you're like, man, nobody ever asked me these questions. They ask me podcast questions all day, blah, 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 blah. What question, business related or not, which question do you wish someone would ask you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we hit on this interview, which is, the deeper reason why someone does what they do, right? In my situation, it was kind of the legacy piece of the whole podcasting. So I think, the deeper reason, it's hard. So not everyone's ready to dig into that, right? I mean, we have a lot of conversations and we kind of talk through some things. So not everyone, maybe someone would say, Jeremy, I'm not ready to do therapy today. Maybe they joke around like that, but the which we got into in this one, not all interviews do we talk about it because we don't get deeper. And this one we did. And that's what it would be, is the deeper reason of why we do certain things or how we got into certain things.
That's awesome. And for you, it was legacy, like this idea of capturing, sharing in, future proponents, kids, grandkids, stuff like that, and owning your own content, right? Like if you're just pushing this out to iTunes and iTunes changes their whatever, but that's why you guys are big proponents of owning the original content.
Yeah, because even real estate, like if you're sending, like you have this amazing VC on, or I do, I want to send them back to my website and have them share a link to my website with their friends and family and colleagues. Whereas if you just put it on iTunes or just put it on Spotify and you're sending them a Spotify link, well, then they're just it's like squirrel, like, oh, I see another like recommended show on the sidebar and I'm just off there. So putting people going to your real estate is so important.
Yeah, so good. So good. All right, Dr. Jeremy, I'll include all your links in the show notes below. So people listening in, if you're interested, you're an investment group, you're a deal maker, you're in commercial real estate, or you're a real estate investor, whatever you are, but you're in the space and you're like, hey, we should, start a podcast. Connect with Dr. Jeremy and find a way to, say, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your motives. Thank you for giving us insights, but find a way to do a deal with our guests and say thank you for being on the show. Till then, I hope you guys are having a great day. Talk to you all on the next episode of the Deal Scout. Dr. Jeremy, you hang in there. Let's chat.